All right, let's jump right in. Today, we're looking at something pretty incredible, a new paper that could completely change how we run clinical trials. We're talking about a digital tool that measures disease in a whole new way. And while it starts with Huntington's disease, believe me, the implications go way, way beyond that.
But before we even get into the weeds of the science, let's just cut to the chase. I want you to ask yourself a question, especially if you're in the life sciences world. What if you could slash your clinical trial size by 80%? Seriously, get a clear yes or no on your drug with way fewer patients and way faster. Sounds almost too good to be true, right? Well, it turns out a simple smartphone app might just be the key.
To really get why this is such a big deal, first we have to talk about the problem it solves. And it's a massive, billion-dollar problem.
You see, trying to develop drugs for neurodegenerative diseases, think Huntington's, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, it is just brutally difficult. The trials take forever, they cost a fortune, and the honest truth is the vast majority of them fail. A huge piece of that puzzle, a big reason for that failure, comes down to one thing: how we measure if a drug is even working in the first place.
For Huntington's, the current gold standard is this thing called the cUHDRS. Now, what is that? Well, basically, it's a whole battery of in-person tests. A patient has to go to a clinic, and a specially trained rater assesses their movement, their thinking, all of that. It's comprehensive, and it's been the way things have been done for decades.
But here's the fundamental problem. Huntington's is a slow-moving disease. The changes, especially in the early stages, are absolutely tiny. So, using the current standard, it's like trying to measure the growth of a tiny little plant sprout with a giant, clumsy yardstick. You know it's growing, but your tool is just too crude to pick up on those small, daily changes. And because of that, you're forced to run these massive, incredibly long trials with tons of patients, all just hoping you might, maybe, catch a faint signal.
So, if the old way is a yardstick, what the field has been desperate for is a digital micrometer, something way more precise. And that is exactly what the researchers behind this paper have built.
So meet the star of our show, the HD Digital Motor Score, or HDDMS. It's a single, powerful number that tracks motor progression in Huntington's. But here's the kicker. Instead of relying on those infrequent, burdensome clinic visits, it uses data from simple tests that patients can do themselves, on a smartphone, from the comfort of their own home.
And what are these tests? You might be picturing something really complex, but it's the opposite. It is remarkably simple stuff. A balance test, a chorea test to track involuntary movements, a speeded tapping test for motor control, and a simple walk test. But here's the magic. While the patient is doing these simple activities, the sensors in the phone are capturing thousands and thousands of data points. It creates this unbelievably rich, detailed picture of their motor function.
Now, I know what some of you might be thinking. Okay, it's a cool app, but is it reliable? Is the science solid? And that's the crucial part. This wasn't some idea just cooked up in a lab. It was co-designed from the ground up with actual patients and neurologists. It was then validated using data from more than 1,000 people across 4 different clinical studies. And its reliability? It's rock solid. An interclass correlation over 0.95, which in layman's terms means the measurements are incredibly consistent and trustworthy.
Okay, so the science is solid, it's rigorous, but what does that actually mean in practice? Well, this is where the story goes from interesting to absolutely transformative.
So look at this. This is the core finding right here. Using the old standard, the cUHDRS, it took 68 weeks, that is over a year and 3 months, to detect a meaningful change in disease progression. With the new HDMS, it took just 20 weeks. Let that sink in for a minute. A clear signal that used to take over a year to find can now be spotted in less than 5 months. That's a revolution.
Now, getting a faster signal is a huge win, but that's only half the story. The knock-on effects are what really change the entire economic equation of a clinical trial.
Because the HDMS is so much more sensitive, so much more precise, you just don't need as many patients to see if a drug is actually having an effect. The researchers did the math, and they figured that using this new digital score could cut the number of patients needed for a trial by about 80%. For a rare disease where just finding patients is a massive challenge, an 80% reduction is, well, it's a total game changer.
Let's make this super concrete. Let's imagine a hypothetical 16-month trial.
With the old method, to get the results you need, you'd have to recruit around 320 participants. Now look at the new way. With the HDMS, you'd only need 65. I mean, just look at that comparison on the screen. The drop in costs, in recruitment time, in the burden on patients and their families. It's absolutely staggering.
So, we've seen the science, we've seen the jaw-dropping data. Now, let's switch gears and talk strategy. What does all this mean if you're a leader in the life sciences space?
The implications here are huge. First, you're de-risking your entire R&D pipeline. Smaller, faster, cheaper trials mean you can test more ideas and, just as importantly, fail faster on the ones that don't work. Second, this is a massive competitive advantage. Imagine getting your results while your competition is still stuck planning a huge, multi-year legacy trial. Third, this unlocks whole new areas for innovation. You can finally test drugs in very early-stage patients where the signal was always too weak to find before. And finally, it just speeds everything up by letting you make those critical go/no-go decisions much earlier.
So when you boil it all down, the takeaway is crystal clear. In an industry this competitive, the biggest risk isn't trying a new technology like this. No, the real risk is being the one left holding that old, clumsy yardstick while your competitors have upgraded to a digital micrometer and are just racing past you. And that really brings us to the final, big-picture thought. This breakthrough is so much more than just a better tool for Huntington's disease. It's the proof of concept. The era of sensitive, remote, digital biomarkers, it's not coming, it's here. This will fundamentally change how medicines are developed. So the question really isn't if this will disrupt drug development. The question is who is going to capitalize on it first. Thanks for watching.